Good evening and welcome to episode 6 of the Pack Homer podcast, brought to you by Waters and Mathis CPAs. If you want to run rule the IRS, visit WMCPAs.com. Today we got guest Derik Goffena, head baseball coach at Garner High School. He's going to join us. He is a Georgia Tech baseball alum, so I thought he would bring some interesting perspective into next week. Appreciate you coming on with us, Coach.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Before we get started with Coach, I do want to go over real quick our series this weekend with Boston College. Also talk about a couple of the other ACC games. If anybody's got anything to add, just jump right in. But Miami won their series over UVA this weekend. I think they're in game 3 now, but they won the first 2 games. They came back. Wesley, how many runs did you say they were? What was the?
12-3, right?
Yeah, I think it was 12-3 when they made the comeback.
Yeah, I think they were down. I think in the 7th inning, they had a grand slam to take the lead. Anyway, crazy stuff. UNC has won their series over Pitt. I'm not sure if they played game 3 there yet, but they've already won that series. Virginia Tech over Notre Dame. And Duke and Wake Forest right now is playing in the background here. Duke's up 2-1 in the second, and that series is tied 1-1. And then State, of course, won their series over Boston College this weekend. That was all the ACC teams that faced off against each other. So real quick, going through the Boston College series, game 1 was a whirlwind of emotion. We led in that game for a long time, ended up winning 5-4 in 11. We had a walk-off, right? We were up 4-1 in the 8th inning. Does that sound right, fellas?
Yeah.
Pennington. Yeah.
Yeah, up 4-1 in the 8th, ended up blowing the lead, coughing it up, went 4-4. Pennington hit a walk-off after, I think, Noah Souls hit a triple, and we won. Ended up winning the game 5-4 on a walk-off. Then the second game of that series was played on Friday night. We played a doubleheader because of the rain in the forecast on Saturday. Won that game 9-1, pretty uneventful. Just kind of went out, got it done. Sam Highfield looked a lot better in that game than he has maybe in a couple of his previous outings. And then the day was crazy. Did anyone watch today? 18-16. Oh, yeah. It was nuts.
Man, today was like that was Stress City right there. How many home runs it ended up being? 11?
I don't know. I lost count. There was a bunch.
I think we gave up 10 walks and 7 home runs. You do that and you win. I feel like your luck's on your side a little bit because that's hard to do. Walk 10 and give up, or walk. I know we hit at least 1 and then give up 7 home runs, but man, the ball was flying out of the dope today. Couple of that Josh Hogue one. When was that? Was that in the 7th maybe?
Yeah, he threw the bat down. He thought he popped
threw
it
the
up.
bat down. Threw his bat down, had his head down. Thought he had popped it up, and the ball carried out to the left field. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did that when I played. I don't think I ever slammed the bat down and the ball flew out. But the way the wind was blowing, I mean, maybe
when the pitchers were coming set on the mound, you could see like their sleeves of their jersey blowing and their hair was flowing back. It was I've never seen that at the dope.
Yeah, it was nuts, and I mean, like I think if I'm in the bullpen today, I don't even want to get called in, especially if I'm trying to protect my ERA. I think Derek Smith, the first pitch he threw, I think something's clicking, guys, in the background. I'm not sure if that's me or y'all, but Derek Smith came in. The first pitch he threw that was put in play, it looked like a routine fly ball. He just turned like left fielder's going to camp under it, and the ball went out of the park by like 20 feet. It was nuts. It kind of looked like that when you were playing, Coach, when they played with the old bats.
Yeah, drop fives were a wonderful thing. They were like tennis rackets. But I watched a lot of it today. One of my former players, Jackson Lucas, I always try to keep up with him, see when he's coming in. Came in, got a couple outs, gave up a couple hits, but no home runs. So, I texted him a little bit ago. I'm like, all things given, not a bad outing. He came in, got out of a jam, gave up a double and a single and handed it over to the next guy that was ready. So it was, if you like offense, it was a fun game to watch.
Yeah, he kept it in the yard. I mean, that was a victory. Talking about Jackson Lucas, Coach, So you coached him at Garner. Did he play at Garner all 4 years?
He did.
So
Yeah,
we
he
talked
did.
about him several times on our podcast, and I know you're a Georgia Tech alum, but I do know from knowing you personally that that you do follow NC State closely as well, being here in the area. So tell us a little bit about him, and then everybody out here says he's loved NC State since he could walk. So
Yeah, when we got him, we knew he was going to be special. I mean, he's, even as a freshman, he came in, we were really good, and he was starting as a freshman before COVID hit. All the schools in the country were calling, and he committed to State as soon as they offered. I mean, that's the only place he wanted to go. Kind of made some of the other schools in the state upset a little bit, but I mean, it's just where he wanted to go. And for us, this is my 23rd year at Garner, and we've had some really good players. I mean, him and one other guy, Nolan McClain, are just 1 and 1A as far as if I were starting a team, who'd I'd want. I know he's coming out of the bullpen and pitching awesome. In all of my years of coaching, playing in the ACC, playing in the Cape Cod, he's the best defensive baseball player I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. I know he's a pitcher now. What he did as a shortstop won us way more games than what he did as a pitcher. The last 2 years, he's been our conference player of the year. He could have been pitcher of the year if you were allowed to win both. But just the athlete that he is, to be able to go out and do stuff, just a good kid, loves all things NC State. And, I think once he kind of gets the college routine down a little bit, he's certainly competitive. He's just got to, you can't, with 1-2 counts, you can't hang changeups belt high. They're going to hit doubles, he has to learn some of the small intricacies that, in ACC baseball, it's just a different level of error to be successful.
Yeah, so talking about freshmen playing in the ACC, I know Coach Godney is from Ohio, but he married a girl from my hometown, so I've known him for a while now. He's a pretty humble guy, so I'm going to drag some stuff out of him a little bit today. But he played at Georgia Tech for 4 years, had over 200 hits. I'm not sure. I think you might have been a freshman All-American. If you weren't, if we look at your numbers, you probably should have been. You hit 10 home runs as a freshman in the ACC. Played with Mark Teixeira. We're there when they won a lot of ball games. So I guess talking about Jackson Lucas, and it ties in too with a lot of these young freshman pitchers we have, and then Luke Nixon that kind of got banged up today. Hope he's not out very long, but he kind of had a collision in the outfield with Noah Souls and is looked to be pretty banged up when he came off the field. But how do you come out of playing high school baseball and compete as a freshman in the ACC? What would you say is like the biggest adjustment to doing that?
The hardest thing for me was, coming in, I felt confident about what I could do. I played a lot of different positions. I was a hitter that kind of played wherever they needed me. I mean, over my course of my career, I played all 3 outfields, second, third, first, DH. But for me, the biggest thing my freshman year was just the toll it takes on your body. 6-7 days a week. If you're playing Auburn at home on a Tuesday night at 7, you're at the field at 3. You don't get home until midnight. You're up the next morning lifting or doing something. I just felt like I hit a wall about 2/3 of the way through my freshman year. I was used to playing 30 games in high school, and then all of a sudden we're on game, 55. And even though it's not like a contact sport, it's still just an everyday grind of, looking back, I wish I would have done more weight room stuff, flexibility stuff, nutrition stuff before I got to Georgia Tech, because my body just wasn't ready for what was going to happen. And then as my career went on, my batting average slowly went up every year. I think I kind of figured out some ways to conserve my body a little bit, but that was the biggest adjustment for me, was just the grind of every day. The 2 hours of BP. Then while they're taking BP, you're kind of finding something to keep busy. Pre-game, it ends up being a 6, 7, 8 hour day by the time you just have one game. let alone, like Friday night for those kids, they probably got to the field at noon and got home at midnight. It was probably a 12-hour day for them.
Yeah, it's a grind. Wesley, I think I was talking to you earlier this week. You had a question I think you wanted to ask Coach about developing players.
Yeah, with the state of North Carolina, South Carolina, high school, college baseball now with so many teams that we see in the top 25, and not just teams, but phenomenal players. When it comes to North Carolina, South Carolina universities, who do you think stands out with the development of talent or development of a high school player? Who stands out the most in your mind?
I think it's different for different facets. Like I look at a school like Campbell and what they do with their pitching staff, and I'm pretty blown away. They don't always get the top tier guys coming in, and it seems like every year they got 3 or 4 guys throwing 97, 98 and getting drafted awful high. Honestly, State, Carolina, ECU, they seem to do it a little more homegrown. They have a lot of North Carolina kids, especially State and ECU. They're very heavy North Carolina recruit people. UNC and Duke venture up into the Northeast a little more. Like Duke, for example, being a private school, they can go to New York and New Jersey and get kids to pay a lot of money to come down and play baseball because they're kind of used to paying private tuition already. And but Duke seems to be doing it more with like grad transfer kids. They're average. They're older kids. There's a lot of 3rd, 4th, 5th year guys. So I think it's just different in different areas, but they, from a local standpoint, I think State and ECU probably stay local as much as anyone and are as successful as anyone.
Right. Have you guys seen the meat wagon?
Oh man,
the Campbell
that's
takes on the gooseneck. Oh man, that's so cool.
That thing is awesome. That showed. I think it was somebody, not even on the team, had posted a video that kind of went a little bit viral. It was like from the hotel room at the Hampton Inn, like behind the pool, and all the Campbell guys were out there working out. That was really cool. And then somebody had kind of did a little one-on-one interview with them, and they were showing it. Yeah, that was really cool. That is cool.
Coach, so you played for Danny Hall. He's still at Georgia Tech. He's been there. I looked up earlier. He's been there 31 years. Coach Avent's been there 28 years. You mentioned a minute ago you've been at Garner High now 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming for someone to be there that long, I think probably 90% of the guys that come through there speak highly of them. I think Andrew Simpson that we had on earlier this year said that only guys that don't like Elliott Avent are the guys that didn't really want to do it the right way. But speak a little bit, I guess, to Coach Hall and I guess what he's meant to Georgia Tech and how a guy like him or Coach Avent, who I know you know as well, what do you think has allowed them to stay in the game at one school or in the ACC this long?
Coach Hall, he's been there forever. I mean, he is him and Coach Avent are alike in a lot of ways, especially in the relationships that they build with their players. I still stay in contact with Coach Hall. We text a lot. When my dad passed away a couple years ago, he was really, really good about being there for me. Whenever they're in town, we always get up with them. I try to, see if I can meet him for dinner, do something. But he's successful because there's a certain way of doing things. He's very businesslike. His approach. He's not necessarily buddies with the players, but all the players like him. Whereas my interactions with Coach Avent are different. Like Coach Avent treats me like I played at NC State. Like Coach Avent has been awesome to me. Growing up, my son, we always go to NC State games. He would have Levi shagging BP in the dugout, in the locker rooms. And Coach Avent, I think, that really builds really good relationships with his players. Kind of allows them to be themselves and play the way that they're good at playing. But it just seems like all those guys would absolutely do anything for Coach Avent. And for him to be there that long and Coach Hall to be there that long, they do things a little differently, it seems like. But at the end of the day, they both treat their players really, really well. And I know like Coach Hall was always very honest with us. Like if you didn't like a situation, hey coach, why am I not playing as much as I was? If you asked a question, you were going to get a very blunt answer, and it was always the truth. And I always appreciated that a lot from him.
So I wanted to ask a question. You're from Ohio, and you guys, just recruiting wise, you were talking earlier about Duke and Carolina bringing guys out of the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
So recruiting wise, I guess with the weather, your seasons have to be a little shorter.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up in Atlanta?
So, I was a baseball football guy. I was getting recruited in both sports pretty hard. And, my dream was to play football at Ohio State. And I distinctly remember I was on a junior day visit at Ohio State with all the top juniors football-wise in Ohio. And the two guys that spoke to us were Eddie George and Orlando Pace. And I remember looking at my dad and I was like, I don't know about this. Like, these guys are huge. So we kind of pivoted and decided baseball was probably better. Still, I took a bunch of visits. I was kind of a regional guy up through my junior year. And then I got invited to kind of like a showcase in Florida, the area code games, which were just kind of a thing. It's kind of the top 100-ish players in the country. And I was like a last second invite. And I went down there and just killed it. And so in a matter of a week, I went from offers from like Ohio State, Dayton, Bowling Green, to within a couple days, offers from like Miami, Clemson, Georgia Tech, UNC. There wasn't any internet, so it was a regional recruiting process. And once we kind of decided to start, I think it was the spring break of my junior year, me and my dad, we went to Clemson, UNC, Georgia Tech. We just kind of made a little tour, and baseball in Ohio, it's really good baseball. We actually had 5 kids from Ohio in my Georgia Tech signing class. So they had a heavy presence up there. But, a nice day is like 37 and windy. It's not fun, weather to always play in up there. And so Coach Hall, being from Ohio himself, he had been a head coach at Kent State. He still had a lot of people up there, and it ended up working out. Me, another pitcher in my conference, a catcher from Cincinnati, and another pitcher from kind of Northeast Ohio. We all ended up kind of going together, and 3 of the 4 of us kind of stuck it out.
I wanted to go ahead, Adam.
No, I was gonna say that's cool. That's really cool. I was reading, Coach, about your little bio on Georgia Tech's baseball page or something, and you talking about things kind of blew up for you. I was anyway. I guess you reached base safely in your first 9 plate appearances. That's pretty staggering number for a freshman.
Yeah, came out of the gate hot, and there really wasn't anywhere to go but down. So it was. I got recruited by a lot of people, but I certainly wasn't the top guy coming in. I was a high school shortstop. All fall, they were trying to find a position for me because I was a pretty good hitter, but I lacked some. I just wasn't the best fielder in the world. Like, I could play anywhere, I wouldn't kill us, but I wasn't the best one in any one position. So all fall, I was playing shortstop, second, third. We opened up with UCLA, and that Friday morning of UCLA, Coach Hall just said, "Hey, can you play outfield?" And I was like, "Sure." So I played right field the first game, and I think I went 4 for 4 with a walk or something. And then the next day, I was hitting leadoff and playing center field, and I think I had a couple home runs that game, and I had never played outfield a day in my life, and I just kind of, I wasn't going to say no. I wanted to hit, so it was. It all ended up working out, and throughout my career, I hit a lot. It's just I would kind of play if it was a righty lefty. Other guys might be hitting or sitting, and I might play first. I might play left, depending on who else was in the lineup that day.
I think it was another. I think I was gonna say. I think it was another game that same year. Reading about it kind of reminded me of our game today versus BC. I think State was up was it 13-5 on you guys, and
yeah, we were We were in Raleigh on a Friday night, and they were up 13-5 in the top of the ninth inning. I remember I led off the ninth inning with an infield single. Nobody got out all the way around, and the bases were loaded, and then I hit a grand slam. And so we went from 13-5 to like 16-13 before they got an out. And the next day I led off and I got hit right in the middle of the back. I was like, come on.
that kind of felt like the way the day was going for State for a while. So
yes. But, I always had fun coming to Raleigh. It was always a good trip. I didn't know a lot of people in the ACC, but a lot of the guys from the Atlanta area grew up playing against a lot of the different people. And so, coming out of Ohio to Georgia Tech, really never thought I'd end up in Raleigh, but it's, really cool how things work out sometimes.
So recruiting wise, I know that you mentioned Nolan McLean earlier, ended up being a two-way star at Oklahoma State. He's in the Mets organization now. You coach Jackson Lucas, who is another kid that could have been drafted out of high school. Both those kids were kids that were getting pro interest out of high school. And then you also mentioned that you were a two-sport guy in high school. I think Nolan was a three-sport guy. Is that right?
He was. He played basketball as well.
Did Jackson play anything else? Or was he?
He did. So Jackson played football up until his senior year. So he played JV football as a freshman. And then as a sophomore and junior, he was a really good wide receiver. And Garner is a pretty run-oriented football team when he played. And his senior year, he had an opportunity to go to Jupiter and do a couple things baseball-wise that just weren't going to match up with football. But, I mean, he was a really good high school football player.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of ask about that. So Garner, and I coached down in Eastern North Carolina in a school that was very similar in the fact that we had to share athletes, but also come from the background where I think that being a multi-sport athlete brings a lot of value, especially in terms of competitiveness and then just athletic ability. You learn to do different things playing different sports. And then Garner, I would say too, and not to hurt any feelings of any of our listeners in the Raleigh area, but I consider Garner to be pretty blue collar. There's some pretty you guys play against some pretty privileged. I'll use the word privilege. You play against some pretty privileged kids in Raleigh. I live in the area. I know. So kids that have spent more money playing travel baseball than their college education might cost them. So how much has that changed recruiting? How much do you have kids now that are just scared to death that they have to play just one? And how do you go about that now?
So the good thing is at our school, the baseball coach, the football coach, and the basketball coach all want them to play everything. Like we push them to do other things. You get some overlap in the summer with football workouts and basketball workouts and baseball games. But, we want the kids to do all of them. Very few of them are going to get paid to do it down the road. So it's like, let's have fun, compete in different areas. You might be the best football player in the world, but, come see how you do in baseball or basketball. And, for me, just being a competitor, when I did commit to Georgia Tech in high school, Coach Hall never saw me play baseball. He came and watched me practice football. Like, he came to a football practice and then came to my house and talked to me and my parents. Like, one of his assistants saw me, but, I don't know how he would have got video or anything. So, when I'm talking to college coaches now, like, honestly, the first three questions they usually ask me are, how are their grades? Did they play any other sports? And how are their parents? Like, that's kind of like the three things that, if they got good grades, it certainly helps. They want an athlete, not just a baseball player. And, they don't want to have to deal with kids' parents. Once they're in college, they should be able to kind of handle their own situations. And, playing multiple sports, I think, just creates a very good culture, not just in the school or the program, but just for the kids to be able to show his athleticism in different areas.
All right, we're going to transition real quick. We're going to let you participate, Coach. We asked last week on our Instagram page for questions, and I thought we might get 2. We got 5. I was going to lie and just say we got so many that might not be able to get to all of them this week, but we got 5, so I think we can try and answer them all. And I'm going to include you in a couple, Coach. The first one we got is what is your favorite baseball movie? Wesley, you got to go first.
For sure, Major League, Willie Mays Hayes. Well, hands down, Major League. There's so many great ones. I mean, you talk about Rookie
Well, don't
of the
start
Year.
spitting them out because we only get one.
So, Major League.
Adam?
I'm gonna go Field of Dreams. I like the part when I'll preface it with this: being in the ag business, Wesley obviously knows this too. In the printing business, there's a big presence in Iowa, and I know a lot of ag folks from Iowa. And so when I guess a shoeless Joe is jogging back, no, it's not shoeless Joe. Well, anyway, when he's jogging back to the outfield, he turns around and asks Kevin Costner. He says, "Is this heaven?" And Kevin Costner says, chuckles. He says, "No, this is Iowa." And I just love that line. But I got to go Field of Dreams.
Coach?
I'm a Field of Dreams guy too, man. I love old baseball. I like the history of the game and stuff. And so for me, just kind of a little more serious and just a lot of factual, kind of old players and stuff. So for me, Field of Dreams for sure.
Well, my favorite is The Sandlot. I've probably seen it 100 times.
That was my number 2. So I'm glad I didn't rattle that one off too.
Benny the Jet and Squints, and then when I was a kid when that movie came out. I thought Wendy Peppercorn was pretty special too. So for me, it's The Sandlot. All right, the next one. What is your earliest baseball memory, or how did you get into baseball? Start with you this time, Coach. I know you come from a baseball family.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I mean, it's just what I've always done. I had an uncle that was a first-round pick, another uncle that was like a third-round pick. My dad played. All I remember is having a ball in my hand. I don't remember a first anything. It's just kind of what I do.
Adam?
Oh man, so my first baseball memory. I mean, I remember playing t-ball, right? And I played with a couple of my cousins. We played for Pioneer Hybrid, corn seed, soybean seed company was our team sponsor. I remember that. I don't remember playing so much in t-ball, but I remember my first year. I guess it was kind of like what would be basically machine pitch now, and I was a lefty. Like Cal knows, I'm a lefty. I do right left-handed. I do a lot of things left-handed, but I also threw left-handed. But I guess it was like my 8th birthday. I broke my left arm in April, right at the beginning of baseball season, and so I switched to throwing right-handed for that year. Basically, I guess it was coach pitch, but it's kind of like what they do machine pitch now at Little League level anyway. And so I switched so I could play that year. I switched and started throwing right-handed, and so I still do everything left-handed, but now I throw baseball right-handed. And so I'd say that was probably my earliest memory because it was such a unique change, right? Because I had a couple left-handed mitts and I had to get some right-handed gloves, and I stuck with that ever since. So I'd go with that as my earliest memory.
Wesley?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Coach. I mean, for me, I never knew a time where I wasn't outside playing with a ball. And, Kyle, we grew up together. And, from the time we were 5, 6, 7 years old, we start out with baseball. 2 hours later, we were playing basketball. And then we'd wrap it up with the game of tackle football. So, the first true memories would have been, backyard. That would have been where it started. And, I don't have the lineage of a coach from family members. And I always seem to be good at all sports, but never great at any. So.
Yeah, mine was, definitely played real early. Yeah, me and Wesley were teammates on the Dodgers back in the Little League.
The dynasty.
The Ben Hilliard dynasty. Won a couple of championships together. I think that one of the things that maybe not my first memory, but one of my very lasting memories from baseball at an early age. So, all of our parents are in agriculture as well, Derik, and my dad, he supported anything I did, but if I told him I wasn't going to play baseball, he wouldn't have cared. He didn't he was the perfect sports parent, because if I didn't play, he was fine with it. But if I did play, he was going to support me. And if I did start the season, though, I was going to finish the season. But I remember when I was like 10 years old, playing Little League games, struck out 3 times. And I've been playing pretty good. I thought I was pretty good. I struck out 3 times. And I remember the car my parents drove back then. I had a blue Crown Victoria. I was sitting in the back seat with my feet on the grass, taking my cleats off, and I was crying. And my dad, who I didn't even know if he really watched the game sometimes when he was there, he walks up and he says, "Son, what are you crying for?" I said, "Dad, I struck out 3 times a day." And the response I got was, "Well, son, you can sit there and cry about it, and you'll strike out 3 times the next one, or you can go practice." And that stuck with me like my whole life and everything. I got a little bit of tough love when I didn't know I needed it, but I needed it. So that's a really early baseball memory for me. Series you're most looking forward to? Adam.
Oh man. I don't know. We got a lot of tough ones coming up, right? So, I'm gonna say UNC. I mean, I think both teams are playing good. I think it's good for the triangle in general. I think it's good for, it's important. I would say for, you always say that the rivalry games are important for local recruiting and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's just from here on out, it's going to be tough. So, I guess probably the easier one to be looking forward to might be Notre Dame. They seem to be the one that is maybe the most down that we have left on the schedule. But yeah, they're going to all be tough. But I always look forward to the rivalry ones.
Coach?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's scheduled this year, but like I'm a huge fan of the non-conference. Like the last couple of years, state, ECU. A random Tuesday or Wednesday night. You'll get 4,000 people in Raleigh, or you'll get 6,000 people in Greenville, and for me, just those kind of one-offs in the middle of the week that are just huge games, and all the kids know each other. Like I'm a big fan of those. I'm not sure if they play this year. I hadn't looked down the road at the schedule, but I certainly hope so.
Yeah, we got them, and you highlighted a problem. 6,000 in Greenville, 4,000 in Raleigh. We got to get some people to give some money. It's the truth. It's the truth, though. Wes?
Yeah, I can't not go with Carolina. You got to look forward to that series. I think they've gotten the best of us the last couple of years. But I do agree with Coach that it's really hard to beat the midweek Tuesday games at Greenville and then at Raleigh. That's special. I think the 2 fan bases have a lot of similarities. And I think those 2 fan bases know baseball maybe more than the average Carolina fan base that was pulling for them in that basketball game last night.
For me, it'd probably be between Duke and Wake Forest. I'll probably say Duke because I love the Carolina series, but it's like too high anxiety for me. Like if we play bad, it might ruin my weekend because I hate them so bad. But I got a couple buddies that are Duke fans, and then I've always thought Coach Pollard. I've said it before. I think he does a really good job, and even though I was not a pitcher, I was a position guy. I like to watch Duke just run out those guys throwing 95. It's entertaining to me to see how many they can keep bringing out of the holster. So, and I think Duke's should be probably top 5 in the country right now. I just think they're a little better than they're ranked. So I think that's going to be a good series. Let's see. We might shouldn't do 5. We could talk a while. Your most vivid NC State baseball memory. I'll go first this time. I don't want anybody to take mine. I remember. Somebody. I guess I'm not even going to use the one I was going to say. But my most vivid NC State baseball memory is my son had a heart ablation when we were playing Vanderbilt in the College World Series, and we won. We beat Vanderbilt in Omaha when Carson. We watched it from Carson's hospital room. Surgery went great. He's fine. No lasting issues from that. But we were in the hospital at Duke University, and Carson had a heart surgery that day. And we had already got permission from the doctors to go to Omaha, like even though he just coming off heart surgery, yeah, you guys, that medicine blows my mind. But anyway, we watched the College World Series game against Vandy in the hospital bed together. So won't ever forget that one. Wes?
Yeah, so mine would be the same. My nephew and I, we were in Omaha, and when Terrell Tatum hit the home run, I think it was off of Leiter. It was you can't repeat those type of moments, especially when you're there, special moment with your nephew. So the Tatum home run would be hard to beat. And I think that's when, Barstool was doing their interview about how Leiter was throwing, and then Tatum hit it over their head. So that was a special moment for me.
Adam?
I would say mine's definitely 2013. I was in Omaha for the game one. We played UNC. Ended up beating them 8-1. Rodon pitched, I think, 5 no-hit innings. Ended up pitching 8 scoreless innings. But yeah, that was pretty special to be there for that. So that was fun. They ended up obviously, knocking us out later. That trip to Omaha, but in the losers bracket. But they but being there watching that game, the game one, and I just instantly fell in love with the whole College World Series experience. That weekend and going to some of the other games. So yeah, I would go with that. Beating UNC in Omaha was tops of my list.
Coach, I'm going to give you 2 questions here since I'm not going to ask you to answer the last one we got. So I want your best Georgia Tech memory, and I wanted to share a story. So you play with Mark Teixeira. I'm not sure, is he a Hall of Famer? He's borderline Hall of Famer if he's not.
No, he's not in yet.
But yeah, so can we get a Tech story and a Georgia Tech memory?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Mark Teixeira is just unreal. The stuff he did. We heard he was really good coming in, but once again, internet was spotty, and you didn't really have the level of recruiting. But he got in and just was so much different than everyone else. Not only on our team, but every team we played against. Like, he was a switch hitter. When he would take batting practice before games, like, everyone would stop on both sides, watch what he was doing. Just the ultimate competitor. He worked hard. Like, honestly, he's just good at everything. Like, if we go play basketball, he was better than everybody else. If we go play golf, he'd beat us all. Like, he was just good at whatever he did. And then just, my Georgia Tech memories are just, I kind of went down there as a kid from a real small town in Ohio to Atlanta, really just to kind of see if I was good enough to play at that level. I mean, I didn't know if I was or not coming out, and because everyone treated me so well. Like, I can't really think of any one specific thing other than it was just 4 years of pretty consistently being ranked in the top 5, top 10, having some really good runs on an NCAA tournament, and just kind of being a part of, I think it was like 2 regular season ACC championships and then one ACC tournament championship. And if I had to pick one moment, an ACC tournament in 2000, we were playing Clemson in the final game, and I was up to bat in the top of the 9th. We were down 2, and Coach Hall asked me to bunt. I tried to bunt, strike 1. I tried to bunt, strike 2. And then the next pitch, I hit a 3-run home run, and we won. We won. So that's, to this day, I don't like to bunt. I don't think bunting. Anybody, you can ask any coach in the triangle that we don't bunt. Like, bases. So winning the ACC championship that year was awesome, and kind of having a home run to get us the lead. And then we scored a couple more after that. I think we won like 13-9 maybe. So that, that was one of the things I, will certainly always keep with me.
And when I coached, I loved the bunt, and it's probably because I couldn't hit. But all right, the last one, I think I can answer it for all of us. We got the question: are you surprised we haven't seen Carson Kelly yet? Carson Kelly actually did get a save today. He threw 4 pitches, first 4 pitches of the season. He got a save. I'm honestly, I think we've all 3 said between us on some side texts that we have been very surprised not to see him. But we're running a lot of freshman arms out there, so I'm not sure if he's been hurt. I'm not sure if he's struggling in practice or what. But he got us out of a big situation today in a game where it seemed like every ball that went in the air was going out of the park. So did finally see Carson Kelly today. All right, let's talk about the Georgia Tech series a little bit for next. A little bit. We're playing Georgia Tech next week. We're 3-0 in the ACC. Georgia Tech's 11-4 overall. This will be their first ACC series of the season. They have some good young players again. The kid. So I don't know how familiar our listeners are with the Georgia Tech roster. I think probably a lot of our listeners probably know Peyton Green's played in there, and he's off to a hot start, which is that's pretty normal for Peyton Green. I hope he hits his slump next week. But Drew Burris, I guess is that how you pronounce his name? I guess it's Burris.
Yep, Drew Burris. He had another home run yesterday. I'm not sure what they did today, but I mean he was really highly recruited coming out of high school. I know some of the state kids, Sosa, Jackson, and Mako were all kind of the top 100 college freshmen. Burris, I think, was one of the top 3 or 4. I mean, he's coming in. He was supposed to be really good, and he's kind of exceeding that right now.
Yeah, he's hit 10 home runs. So I looked him up, and you talk about there was no internet and all that stuff back in the day. Well, now there's like too much information, but Perfect Game, I guess, is pretty reliable because they have combines and stuff. But he's only 5'9". He's 5'9", 182 pounds. He ran under 6'5". I think he ran 6'4", in the 60, and threw the ball from the outfield at 97 mile an hour, and he's hit 10 home runs already. 10 home runs in the first 15 games. So pretty special talent. And another thing I saw, and I've never seen a number like this in my life. It's either 31 or 33. He hit 31 or 33 home runs his junior year of high school. I didn't even know that was possible. Like, I don't think I've ever played with anybody that hit maybe more than 10. 31 home runs is nuts. So I don't know what the magic is, but he hits the ball a long way for not in an offensive way, but he's a little guy. And I mean, he just absolutely murders it. Didn't he have a 4 home run game already this year?
He did. It's a couple weekends ago. He had a 4 home run game. He was he get it up 4 home runs and a walk that day. So he was good. And I try to watch him as much as I can. Like I always, if they're on or state's on it, we're watching a game, every day of the week that they're on. He's been very fun to watch. Like Cal said, he can fly. He's a good defensive player, and obviously he's swinging it well too.
He walked twice and went 1 for 2 today with 2 RBIs. They won 18-2.
Okay.
And 7.
Yeah, so he keeps getting after it. Peyton Green's there. He's hitting 375. Hit 5 home runs so far. Trey Younger's hitting 400 for him. I don't know much about their pitchers, but I did want to ask Derik this because it seems like Georgia Tech always hits. They kind of remind me of NC State a little bit in that the NC State, we say they're pretty much always going to hit. You kind of wonder where the pitch is going to be. And Georgia Tech always hits. And I think right now, they haven't played the ACC game, but they have like a 4.89 ERA, probably a little bit higher than they'd like for who they've played against. So what is it a cultural thing at Georgia Tech that is there something special in the water there? Or is it just the way coach recruits?
When I was there, we led the country in hitting, I think 2 or 3 times. It's always been an offensive place to hit. Like you'll see next weekend, the ball, it's a very offensive ballpark. I think there's going to be a lot, between those 2 teams, there's going to be a lot of home runs next weekend. And from a pitching standpoint, it seems like every year they always have a couple guys that they're super high on. I know there's a hard-throwing lefty named Cameron Hill. They had one of the best closers in the country last year, Terry Busey. And I think they're trying to start him this year, and it just hadn't gone well to this point, the transition for him. So, being a top 25 perennial team, I don't know if the philosophy has always been hit first, but as long as I've been following them, the offense is usually ahead of the pitching, when you're talking about that team.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit too about our team because we haven't done enough of that today. And I want to ask anyone who wants to jump in, please do. But so AMAC today, our ECU transfer, I think he drove in maybe 5 more today. But anyway, he's leading the country right now in RBIs. Adam, I'll go to you first. I mean, what do you think about these transfers we've brought in? We've brought in some important pieces, but AMAC has been incredible so far.
Yeah, AMAC and Pennington, man, he just continues to hit the ball hard. I mean, we were talking about it, on the games Friday. He just absolutely roping the ball. I don't know what he's up to average wise now. I know he was, 460 plus or so at one point today. But yeah, between Pennington and AMAC both, I mean, I think one of the commentators today was talking about Pennington's stat line, 390 or whatever. Or not Pennington, excuse me, talking about AMAC stat line, batting 390, 7 home runs. And I think he got 30 RBIs now or 29?
32.
32.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he was saying that's a good college season stat line. You say you got 7 homers and 32 RBIs. So yeah, he's been on tear. So team is batting 340, 343, I think, through Friday. Still, I guess, 3 or 4 guys, 400 plus. So yeah, I mean, continuing to hit the ball. Obviously, we needed a lot of runs at times, especially today. So, but yeah, the transfers, they've so far they've delivered, and obviously with AMAC, I would say kind of certainly to this point exceeding expectations. I think there was a lot of thought that he was going to solidify us at third base on defense, but never hit for the average at ECU that he's hitting now. So yeah, excited for him.
Wesley, what are you worried about? I mean, we're 12-2, we're 3-0 in the ACC, but we have the ability to be pretty pessimistic sometimes.
Yeah, no, I really like Butterworth a lot. I mean, you can see he plays with a lot of confidence. He looks like he's very vocal in the field, and he's had a very slow start to the plate. And I think in that third game, he broke out of his slump. And I think if we can start producing in the bottom third of that lineup with what the top third's doing, we're going to be hard to pitch against. So AMAC's great, Pennington's great. But I think if Butterworth really starts hitting the ball like he did in that third game, it's going to be, from 1 to 9. That's a tough lineup to go against. But I do not like. I mean, I'm glad we have AMAC, but I still have. I guess maybe I'm a little too old school for ECU guy to go to NC State or NC State guy to go to ECU. I don't like that. Peyton Green's at Georgia Tech. The interconference transfers are kind of hard to. I guess that's just the new nature of the beast. But I'm not a fan of that. But I need to get over it. It is what it is. That's where we're at now, and we'll move on.
And we're glad to have him.
Yeah, we're glad to have him. I'm sure Cliff Godwin doesn't agree, but I'm glad we have AMAC. Definitely glad we have him.
So we did shake up the rotation a little bit this week. We took the freshman Marone out, the lefty, brought in Logan Whitaker to the rotation. We talked about last week, maybe Dom goes out and Whitaker comes in, but it was actually Marone. So we went Highfield. Was it Highfield Whitaker or Whitaker Highfield?
Whitaker Highfield. Whitaker Friday night.
Whitaker Highfield Dom. I mean, I'm still a little bit concerned about our rotation. I don't think we've quite figured it out. You're very lucky that you can be 3-0 and you say you're still trying to figure it out rotation wise. Our freshman arms, we are all really high on several guys. Still, I think we've talked about a little bit about how the older guys have just been buried. And so just knowing that when you get into the ACC that, you're having these guys in high leverage moments, whether it be Jackson Lucas or Chance Mako or Shane Van Dam, who's a Division III transfer, Ryan Marone now out of the bullpen. I think that is a lot to ask of a freshman, but they do get to grow up fast when you put them in those situations over and over and over again. So I'd say if I had a concern about where we're at, it would be just if our bullpen can hold up. And if Does anyone think our rotation is set, or do you think we're going to see more changes as we?
Yeah, I still think it's all over the place. I mean, I think Whitaker on Friday night was much better than the final stat line, ended up showing.
Yeah.
Whitaker was great. He had really good stuff, and I think there's his presence on the mound Friday night was great for the whole team. And then you can't say enough about what Duden came in
Oh yeah,
and did as a freshman. I mean, that was phenomenal. But those two guys are great, and then Sam was good on in the second game as well. But I thought that from Whitaker he started the year in the pen, then now he's a starter. I think it was he got our season off to a great start. He couldn't have pitched a whole lot better than he pitched, and he had a career high 9 strikeouts on Friday night. So it was a great performance by Whitaker. I just not to get off sidetrack, but Whitaker just seems like somebody like to have a few beers with. He's about our age. He just seems like he's just seems like a great guy. It was good to see him to get off to a good start, especially with Willison, losing that steady, the steady guy that you would have out there to see maybe Whitaker. And he was last year. Whitaker was a great Friday night guy last year. So I'm glad to pick Coach Chrysler. In my mind, he got it right. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Whitaker was effective last year on Friday night. He's a Friday night guy, and he went out and he showed why.
Coach, what do you think about all these freshmen we're running out there? You told us before we came on today you're playing you're playing 7 sophomores right now.
Yeah,
which is really young in high school baseball. 7 sophomores are about the equivalent of playing freshmen in college.
I think it's good to get them out there in certain situations. It's as long as the moment's not too big for them. Most of them seem to be doing really well. You hate for it to be at the expense of maybe some veterans who have been there and done that. The shiny new object sometimes, gets preference, but, just like Kelly came in today and had a great outing. I know there's some other guys, that hadn't thrown as much yet that, hopefully will get some chances to shine, but it does seem like a special group of young arms that they have. And I think some of them will develop into starters. And as they start figuring out what roles best fit each one, going back to the previous question, I think that, the starting rotation probably up for grabs a little bit. I think that all of them, have pluses and minuses. When I look at a starter, whether it's when I played or not, it's hard for a starter to constantly live with 3 balls on lots of batters. And I think Fritton's stuff is awesome. I think his swing and miss rate is super high, but, he's usually, by the time you're at 3 2/3, 4 1/3, he's usually, 85, 95 pitches. And it's really hard to live long-term like that when you're constantly going 3-1 full count. He wins a lot of those battles because he's a really good pitcher. But, maybe just trying to tighten up the strike zone a little bit, I think will go a long way. For the freshmen, some of the older guys, just a guy like Fritton, his stuff is so good, just attack people. I've not seen him get squared up a ton. It seems to be the walks that are getting him in trouble a little bit.
Yeah, I think talk about going deep in counts. I think it was Labriola came in today and went full count on 3 batters in a row, walked all 3 of them, and then gave up a grand slam.
And man, the strike zone today was pretty big. So
yeah.
it could have been a lot worse. My gosh, he was calling it high.
How about the 2 breaking balls to AMAC? That he threw him 2 breaking balls in a row that were at the bill of his cap. It seemed like he called them both strikes.
I think it was on that was on a 2-0 count. He got 2 in a row, and then he ended up getting a hit right.
Hit one off the wall, and they threw him another hanging breaking ball, and he's like, "Well, yeah."
Yeah, he was calling it up above his the writing on his jersey for sure.
Yeah, I think that just like our pitching stuff, we're still trying to work out our lineup a little bit too. But we have a lot of pieces, and I think Georgia Tech, if you look, they have a lot of guys too that can hit. It's kind of hard to figure that out. With Nixon getting hurt, I'm assuming we're going to see some more Matt Hebner, although Falskin was who they brought in to play second base today. Coach, so I know there was Matt Willitson was actually another kid. Was he in y'all's league?
He was. He played at Holly Springs.
Yeah. And Matt was a two-way guy. He's a really good high school shortstop. I think you told me that before. And I don't know if you saw the game earlier this year where a lot of the pitchers got at bats. We played a midweek game and Garrett Payne got an at bat, and I can't remember a couple other guys. Andrew Schaffner got an at bat, so I was wondering, is Jackson even doing any position work, or is he 100% pitcher?
Seems like he's transitioned to pretty much pitcher only. I know in the fall, in both of the scrimmages with Duke and in the other one, he played some third base and he got some at bats. But I think with pitching a little more, I think he's transitioned pretty much primarily into being a PO. I know he'd like to try to continue to do both, but I think whenever you're coming out of the bullpen a lot, not on regularly scheduled days, it's probably going to be tough to do both moving forward.
Yeah. All right.
Today was his sixth appearance already. So.
Yeah, if you look at the freshman, it looks like I'm looking at the stats right now. Lucas, we ran him out 5 times. Duden, we ran him out 7 times. Let's see. Consiglio's got 3 appearances already. So we have not hesitated to send those guys out there and in some high leverage moments. So if we want to wrap it up, since we got a yellow jacket on the pod with us, and we're going down there to play next week. Make a prediction on the series, guys. We'll start with you, Wes.
I wish you had not started with me. I do not think we win the series next weekend. I think we get 1 out of 2 in Atlanta.
1 out of 3.
1 out of 3 in Atlanta. Like you said, maybe I'm the pessimist, but I don't. And that doesn't mean we're not gonna, have a great season. I don't mean that, but that's my prediction for this weekend. I hope after this weekend we can, maybe our rotation is more solidified. Hopefully, is my hope. I hope we win the weekend, but hope we can, get a little more clarity on the rotation.
Adam?
I'm gonna be more optimistic and say we win 2. I was looking at the stats, and I haven't watched them. I watched a little bit of the Georgia Tech games. I guess that was last weekend, right? I remember watching a little bit of those. I can't remember his last name. I think it's Finateri, but he's he got a no decision in the Georgia series, but he's 3-0. He started 4 games counting Georgia, but I think he struck out 26 and walked 5. Got like a 2.4 ERA or something like that. So that's going to be pretty tough for us, I would say. We've just, we obviously scored a lot of runs a day, which is good, but the last, on Friday, early, it just seemed like, they came in bunches, which is fine. But just long stretches where it's not that we weren't getting on base, we weren't getting guys across the plate. So I'm gonna be a little more optimistic than Wes. I'll say 2-1. 2-1 good guys.
All right, I'm gonna go and let Coach go last. I think I'm gonna be a pack homer. I think we're gonna win 2 out of 3 as well. But my reason I think the teams may be I think they're probably a little bit more evenly matched. Maybe some of the national folks think. But what I do like is that we have an ACC series under our belt right now. And they haven't had to play an ACC series. There's a lot of pressure too. I feel like if you are the home team and you were to drop if you lose the game on Friday night, it suddenly gets a lot tougher for you to win a series in the ACC. I really think Witt's going to keep us in the game for a long time and give us a good chance to win on Friday night. So I like our chances to win game 1, and I think when you win game 1 in the ACC, it's a significant advantage. So I'm gonna go with the Pack 2-1.
Man, these are my 2 favorite teams. It's like the only 2 teams I really follow. So for me, it's kind of a win-win. I do think it'll be 2-1, and honestly, I probably think State, has definitely the arms to win the series 2-1. I think Georgia Tech's still trying to figure out some things with how they're going to do. Their pitching rotation, I think both teams are going to hit a lot, but I do think that State's played the tougher schedule to this point. So even though, I went there and played there, I think NC State probably has the advantage if I'm looking at it unbiasedly, and 2-1 State probably seems pretty realistic.
All right. Any final thoughts from anyone? All right. Hey, Coach, appreciate you coming on with us. Always interesting to get perspective from someone who's, had a career you had, and then now as a coach, coaching some of the better players in North Carolina. So really appreciate you joining us.
I appreciate it, guys. It was fun.
Thank you,
All right.
Harris.
We'll see y'all next week. Here comes the bad music.
We could at least play some cheap seats in the background. Yeah, we could at least figure
From
it out.
my iPhone?
Yeah.